Blood trails across frost-crusted stones as a lone figure crawls through the misty Norwegian fjords. The season of ice has come early in the year 867, and the remote settlement of Ravnholm lies in smoldering ruins, its defenders slaughtered by merciless raiders from the east. A battle-axe lies half-buried in blood-soaked snow beside an overturned cradle, an image that would forever haunt the survivors of what would come to be known as the Red Dawn Massacre. The bitter northern wind carries the scent of ash and iron. Across the devastated landscape, sweeping through the burned-out shells of longhouses that once stood proud against the mountain backdrop, smoke still rises from the embers, curling like spectral fingers into the leaden sky. The attackers had come with the morning mist, their war cries shattering the peace as families prepared their morning meals. No quarter was given, no mercy shown, yet they hadn't counted on the ferocity of a mother's love or the protection of the gods who watch over those who refuse to surrender. The frozen ground crunches beneath Freydis Ragnarsdottir's bloodied hands as she pulls herself forward another painful arm's length. The spear wound in her side has soaked her tunic with crimson, leaving a stark trail behind her in the pristine snow. In her other arm, bundled tightly against the cold, her infant. Daughter Sigrid whimpers softly, too exhausted even to cry properly after hours exposed to the bitter cold. Freydis's fingers have lost all feeling, her lips blue with cold. Yet still she crawls onward toward the distant mountains where her sister's settlement lies, 10 brutal miles across terrain that would challenge even a healthy warrior. Odin. "Give me strength," she whispers through cracked lips, her breath crystallizing in the frigid air. "Not for myself, but for my child." Before we continue this tale of impossible courage, tell us in the comments where you're watching from, fellow shield brother or shield sister. If the sagas of our ancestors stir your blood, make sure you've pledged allegiance to our channel by subscribing, for tomorrow I bring you the blood-soaked tale of Ragnar's last stand that will shake you to your core. Ravnholm had once been a prosperous fishing village, nestled between towering cliffs that sheltered it from the worst of the North Sea's fury. 24 longhouses built of sturdy oak and stone had housed nearly 100 souls, fishermen, craftsmen, and warriors, who had settled here after years of raiding the southern lands. The great hall stood at the center, its carved dragon posts reaching toward the sky, adorned with intricate knot patterns that told the story of their people's journey. The settlement had been established by Thorbrand the far-traveled, Freydis's grandfather, who had claimed this protected cove after a vision from Odin himself led him to its shores. 3 generations had fished these waters, farmed the narrow strips of fertile land, and raised their children beneath the watchful gaze of the gods. They had built a modest trading outpost that attracted merchants from as far as the eastern realms, bringing amber, furs, and occasionally slaves to exchange for their famed smoked fish and finely crafted bone combs. Now nothing remained but smoking, ruins and frozen corpses, their blood painting grotesque patterns across the snow-covered ground. The attack had come without warning. No sentry horns, no time to gather weapons or flee to the safety of the nearby caves. Freydis had been nursing Sigrid by the hearth fire when the first screams reached her ears. Her husband, Håkon Ironhand, had grabbed his axe and rushed outside, shouting for her to take the baby and hide. She had barely enough time to wrap Sigrid in furs and conceal herself beneath the storage cellar's trapdoor before the door splintered inward. Through the cracks in the wooden planks, she watched as foreign boots stomped across her home. Their language was unknown to her, harsher than the Norse tongue, with guttural sounds that reminded her of the tales her grandmother told of the eastern tribes beyond the Baltic Sea. They took everything of value, Hakon's silver arm rings, her amber necklace, even the iron cooking pots. Then, as if sensing a presence, one of the raiders began probing the floorboards with his spear. The memory makes Freydis pause in her crawling, a shudder passing through her body that has nothing to do with the cold. The spear had pierced the trapdoor, driving deep into her side, the white-hot pain nearly causing her to cry out. Only by stuffing her sleeve into her mouth had she managed to remain silent, one hand clamped over Sigrid's tiny mouth. Blood had pooled beneath her as she lay perfectly still, listening to the raiders moving through the house, overturning furniture and tearing apart bedding in their search for hidden treasures. Only when the sounds of destruction had moved to distant houses did she dare to move, climbing painfully from her hiding place to find her home in ruins. Through the shattered door, she could see bodies in the street, neighbors, friends, family. And there, just beyond the threshold, lay Håkon, his mighty frame surrounded by the bodies of 4 raiders he had taken with him to Valhalla. His face was turned toward the sky, eyes still open but seeing nothing, his favorite axe still clutched in his lifeless hand. There had been no time for proper mourning. The distant sounds of fighting were growing fainter, the raiders moving toward the outer buildings. With trembling hands, Freydis had gathered what few supplies remained: a water skin, a small pouch of dried fish, a single fur cloak. Her side burned like fire where the spear had pierced her, but she knew the wound wasn't immediately fatal. If she could reach her sister's settlement, if she could just make it to Krokvik, there might be hope for Sigrid. A raven's harsh call brings Freydis back to the present moment. The blackbird circles overhead, its keen eyes fixed upon her struggling form. In her pain-addled mind, she wonders if Odin himself watches through the creature's eyes, measuring her worth, deciding whether she deserves divine intervention. The thought gives her renewed strength. She has always been a faithful follower of the All-Father, making proper sacrifices at the blot ceremonies and honoring the old ways. Perhaps this is her final test. "See me, All-Father," she whispers, pulling herself forward another excruciating foot. "See my strength." The terrain grows steeper as she leaves the coastal flatlands behind. Each movement sends fresh agony through her wounded side, but Freydis grits her teeth against the pain. The spear had entered just below her ribs on the right side, missing vital organs but causing significant blood loss. The cold has been both blessing and curse, slowing the bleeding but bringing with it the threat of a different death. Already she can no longer feel her toes, and her fingers move clumsily as she clutches little Sigrid to her breast. The infant has been unnaturally quiet since they left the burning settlement behind. Occasionally she makes small sounds of discomfort, but mostly she sleeps, too exhausted and cold for proper wailing. Freydis knows this is a dangerous sign. Babies should cry, should demand food and warmth with lusty screams. This eerie quiet speaks of a child slipping away. "Stay with me, little one," she murmurs, adjusting the furs to better cover the tiny face. "Your father watches us from Valhalla. We must not disappoint him." The mention of Håkon brings fresh grief surging through her chest. They had been married only 2 winters, brought together through an arrangement between their families that had, against all expectations, blossomed into genuine love. Håkon had been 15 years her senior, a respected warrior who had sailed with the great raids to England and returned with wealth and wisdom. He had chosen to settle in Ravnholm after decades of wandering, claiming that the sight of Freydis tending her father's sheep had struck him with the force of Thor's hammer. Their courtship had been brief but intense, culminating in a wedding feast that lasted 3 days. The birth of Sigrid 8 moons ago had completed their joy. Håkon had proven himself a doting father, already carving tiny wooden animals for the daughter he swore would grow to be as fierce and beautiful as her mother. Now he was gone, his soul feasting in Odin's hall while his body lay unburned, denied the proper rites that would secure his place in the afterlife. The thought brings a low moan from Freydis's throat. If she survives this ordeal, she must return to provide proper funeral rites, not just for Håkon, but for all of Ravnholm's fallen. A sudden gust of wind brings the scent of wood smoke. Freydis pauses, her senses alert despite her weakened state. Smoke means fire, and fire means people. But whether friend or foe remains to be seen. The raiders might have continued inland, burning other settlements as they went, or it could be hunters from Krokvik, perhaps even a search party of survivors, had somehow reached the neighboring settlement with news of the attack. She adjusts her course slightly, moving toward a rocky outcropping that might provide both shelter and a vantage point. Each movement is agony now, her limbs leaden with exhaustion and cold. The sun has begun its swift descent toward the horizon. A winter day in the northern lands is brutally short, and once darkness falls, her chances of survival will dwindle to almost nothing. The rocks provide some shelter from the wind, and Freydis allows herself a moment's rest, cradling Sigrid close to share what little body heat she has left. The infant's face is alarmingly pale, her usually rosy cheeks now as white as the snow around them. With numb fingers, Freydis manages to uncork her water skin, letting a few precious drops fall onto Sigrid's lips. The baby responds weakly, tongue darting out to capture the moisture. "That's it, little warrior," Freydis encourages, her voice hoarse. "Fight like your father." From her position among the rocks, she can see a thin column of smoke rising from beyond the next ridge. It's too small to be a village burning, more likely a campfire or a hunter's lodge. Hope flickers in her chest, quickly tempered by caution. She cannot risk approaching strangers without knowing their intentions, not when she's too weak to defend herself or her child. The weight of Hakon's knife presses against her hip where she'd tucked it into her belt before fleeing. It's a poor weapon compared to a sword or axe, but in better days, she had some skill with it. Her father had insisted all his daughters learn to defend themselves, claiming that any child raised in the northern wilds needed sharp steel and sharper wits. Now she wonders if she has enough strength left to wield it if needed. The raven returns, landing on a nearby boulder. Its glossy black feathers shine almost blue in the fading light, its intelligent eyes fixed upon her with uncanny focus. In the old stories, ravens were messengers of Odin, bringing wisdom and guidance to those the Allfather favored. Freydis finds herself addressing the bird directly, delirium perhaps beginning to cloud her mind. "What message do you bring, feathered one? Does your master watch me struggle? Does he find me worthy?" The raven cocks its head, then lets out a series of deep, resonant croaks that echo off the surrounding stones. To Freydis's exhausted mind, the sound almost seems to form words. Forward, forward. Whether divine guidance or the hallucination of a dying woman, the encounter gives Freydis renewed purpose. She clutches Sigrid tighter and begins moving again, using the rocks for support as she forces herself to her feet for the first time since the spear pierced her side. Standing sends a rush of dizziness through her, and fresh blood wells from the wound, but the ability to walk rather than crawl will significantly increase her speed. Each step is torment, but Freydis sets her jaw and continues forward, one hand pressed against her wound, the other cradling Sigrid securely against her chest. The raven takes flight, circling once above her head before gliding toward the ridge where the smoke rises. Freydis follows, using trees and rocks for support when her strength threatens to fail. The light continues to fade from the sky, the brief winter day surrendering to the long northern night. The temperature drops further, and Freydis's breath clouds heavily before her face. Sigrid has grown alarmingly still, and Freydis pauses to check that the infant still breathes. The sight of the tiny chest rising and falling brings tears of relief to her eyes, quickly freezing on her cheeks in the bitter cold. "Just a little further," she promises, though she has no idea if that's true. "Hold on, my little one." As she crests the ridge, leaning heavily against a pine tree for support, Freydis finally sees the source of the smoke. A small hunting lodge stands in a protected hollow below, its sturdy log walls and steep roof built to withstand the harsh winter storms. A single window glows with firelight, and smoke rises steadily from the stone chimney. Outside, several horses are tethered beneath a simple shelter, stamping and snorting in the cold air. Relief floods through Freydis at the sight of the Norse-style building. This is no raider camp, but a structure built by her own people. Still, caution makes her pause. She needs to determine who occupies the lodge before revealing herself. In her weakened state, with a baby to protect, she cannot risk encountering hostiles. She makes her way carefully down the slope, using the growing darkness and scattered pines for cover. The wound in her side has reopened completely now, warm blood soaking through the makeshift bandage she'd fashioned from torn cloth. Each heartbeat sends a fresh pulse of pain through her body, and black spots dance at the edges of her vision. She knows she's reaching the limits of her endurance. Soon she will collapse, and if she hasn't found help by then, both she and Sigrid will perish in the snow. When she's within 50 paces of the lodge, the door swings open, spilling golden firelight across the snow. A tall figure emerges, face obscured by a heavy fur hood. Freydis freezes, instinctively pressing herself against the trunk of a pine tree, though she knows the darkness likely hides her from view. The figure moves toward the horses, checking their coverings against the night's deepening cold. As the stranger turns back toward the lodge, the hood falls back slightly, and Freydis catches a glimpse of a familiar profile illuminated by the light from the doorway, the straight nose, the braided beard adorned with silver beads. She knows this man. Bjorn, she whispers, the name barely audible even to her own ears. Bjorn Ravnholm, her sister Thyra's husband, a hunter and trader known throughout the region for his tracking skills and fair dealings. The recognition sends a surge of hope through Freydis's failing body. If Bjorn is here, there might be others from Kravik, perhaps even Thyra herself. These are her people, her family. Safety lies just steps away. She tries to call out, but her voice fails her, producing only a faint croak that doesn't carry across the distance. Her legs buckle beneath her, strength finally deserting her completely. As she falls to her knees, in the snow, Sigrid lets out a sudden, piercing wail, the first strong sound she's made in hours. The cry carries clearly through the still evening air. Bjorn's head snaps up, his hand moving instantly to the sword at his hip as he peers into the darkness. "Who goes there?" he calls, his deep voice carrying the authority of a man accustomed to command. "Show yourself," Freydis tries again to speak, managing only a broken whisper. "Bjorn, help us." She pitches forward, consciousness slipping away as the last of her strength deserts her. As darkness claims her vision, she's vaguely aware of shouting, of running, footsteps crunching across snow, of strong arms lifting her from the ground. Sigrid's cries continue, strong and healthy now, as if the child somehow knows they've reached safety. "Freydis? By the gods, it's Freydis! And the baby!" Bjorn's voice seems to come from very far away. "Quickly, bring them inside!" Then darkness takes her completely, and Freydis Ragnarsdottir knows no more. The crackling hearth fire casts long shadows across the hunting lodge's wooden walls as Freydis Ragnarsdottir drifts between consciousness and the void. Fragments of memories blend with fever dreams, the glint of foreign blades in the morning light, Hakon's final battle cry, the endless crawl through snow and pain. Rough hands tend to her wounds, voices murmur prayers to the gods, and always, always, she reaches for her child, fingers grasping at empty air until someone places the swaddled infant against her breast. 3 days pass before Freydis fully awakens, her blue eyes focusing at last on the timber beams above. The pain in her side has dulled to a persistent throb. Her limbs feel weighted with lead, but her mind is clear for the first time since the attack. She turns her head slowly, taking in the unfamiliar surroundings. The hunting lodge is simple, but well-built, a single room dominated by a stone hearth where a cooking pot bubbles steadily. Weapons and hunting tools hang from the walls, alongside dried herbs and cured meats. A woman sits near the fire, her back to Freydis, humming softly as she works a spindle. "Thyra?" Freydis's voice emerges as a rasp, her throat parched from disuse. The woman turns quickly, revealing not her sister's face but that of Astrid Grimsdottir, a respected healer from Krokvik. Her weathered face breaks into a smile as she rises, crossing to Freydis's bedside with a cup of water. "She lives," Astrid announces, supporting Freydis's head as she drinks. "The gods favor you, Freydis Ragnarsdottir. Few could survive what you have endured." Freydis drains the cup greedily, the cool water reviving her further. "My daughter," she manages. "Where is Sigrid?" "The little one is with your sister in the next room," Astrid assures her, refilling the cup. "Thira arrived yesterday with supplies from Krokvik. The child is well, hungry and loud as babies should be. A fighter, like her mother." Relief washes through Freydis, momentarily stronger than her pain. "And Ravnholm? Are there other survivors? Did anyone else escape the raiders?" Astrid's face grows grave as she sets aside the water cup. "You are the first we've found alive. Bjorn led a party to Ravnholm after bringing you here. They found only death and ashes. I'm sorry, child." The news, though expected, strikes Freydis like a physical blow. Tears well in her eyes as faces flash. Through her mind, neighbors, friends, family, all gone in a single blood-soaked morning. Hakon's face lingers longest, his laughing eyes and gentle hands now nothing but memory. "The bodies," she says through her tears. "Did they? They honored the dead as best they could," Astrid says gently. "Built pyres for those they found. Bjorn made certain your husband received full rights, with his weapons and belongings to accompany him to Valhalla. This small mercy brings fresh tears, but also a measure of peace. Hakon would find his place among the honored dead, feasting in Odin's hall until Ragnarok calls all warriors to the final battle." The door opens, admitting a blast of cold air and Thira Ragnarsdottir, tall and fair like her sister, but with a hardness about her that Freydis has never possessed. In her arms, bundled against the winter chill, Sigrid sleeps peacefully, her round cheeks flushed with healthy color. Thyra's stern face softens at the sight of her sister awake. "So the corpse crawlers will have to wait a while longer for you," she says, the gruffness of her tone belied by the moisture in her eyes. She crosses the room swiftly, passing the sleeping infant to Freydis's eager arms. The weight of her daughter against her chest fills Freydis with renewed purpose. She studies the perfect features, counts tiny fingers, runs a gentle hand over the wispy blonde hair so like Hakon's. "She has grown stronger," she murmurs. "3 days of my milk and proper warmth have done her good," Thira confirms, settling on the edge of the bed. "Though how you kept her alive through that journey I cannot fathom. Bjorn says you crawled nearly 7 miles before reaching the ridge." Freydis shakes her head slightly. "I remember little after the first few hours. The pain, the cold. It all became a haze. But I knew I had to reach Krokvik, had to bring her to safety." "You very nearly died in the attempt," Astrid interjects, checking the bandages wrapped tightly around Freydis's torso. "The spear wound was deep, and you lost much blood. Then there's the frostbite in your toes and fingers. You'll carry those. Scars for life, though I believe you'll keep all your digits if infection doesn't set in." Freydis barely registers the healer's words, her attention fixed on Sigrid's peaceful face. In the child's features, she sees echoes of Hakon, the shape of the brow, the determined set of the tiny jaw even in sleep. His legacy lives on in their daughter, and for that, Freydis knows she would crawl twice the distance she managed, would endure any pain or hardship. "Who were they?" she asks, finally looking up at her sister. "The raiders. Did Bjorn learn anything of them?" Thyra exchanges a glance with Astrid before answering. "Bjorn believes they were Kievan Rus, warriors, from the eastern kingdoms beyond the Baltic. Their dead wore distinctive armor and carried weapons unlike our own. It appears they sailed up the fjord under cover of darkness, struck Ravnholm at dawn, then returned to their ships with their plunder." "But why Ravnholm?" Freydis presses. "We were not wealthy compared to larger settlements. Why travel so far? To raid such a small village?" "That," says a deep voice from the doorway, is the question that troubles us all. Bjorn Ravenson fills the entrance, his massive frame barely clearing the lintel. Snow clings to his beard and fur cloak, evidence of the continuing harsh weather outside. He stomps boots against the threshold before entering, bringing with him the sense of pine and frost. The Shield Maiden awakens, he says, nodding respectfully to Freydis. Your survival honors your ancestors, sister-in-law. The Skalds will sing of your courage when this tale reaches them. Despite their kinship by marriage, Freydis has never been close to Bjorn. Her sister's husband is known as a stern, sometimes harsh man, fair in his dealings, but uncompromising in his expectations of others. He has always treated Freydis with distant courtesy, perhaps finding her too gentle, too devoted to the domestic arts, rather than the warrior path that Thyra chose alongside him. Yet now he looks at her with newfound respect, even admiration. The recognition warms her unexpectedly. I did only what any mother would do, she replies softly. No, Bjorn counters firmly. Many would have surrendered to their wounds or the cold. Many would have hidden and died where they fell. You fought for 7 miles with a spear wound that would have felled most warriors. You kept your child alive through a journey that killed 4 of my hunting party last winter, and they were hale men with proper equipment. He crosses to the fire, warming his hands before continuing. As for your question, why Ravnholm was targeted? I believe it was no random raid. The Rus rarely venture this far north without specific purpose. They took no slaves, though. Many in your village would have fetched good prices in the eastern markets. They slaughtered everyone methodically, house by house. They were looking for something, Thyra adds, her face grim. Or someone. The implication hangs in the air, unspoken but clear. If the raiders had a specific target in mind, and if they did not find what they sought in Ravnholm, they might return to continue their search. Freydis tightens her arms around Sigrid, protective instinct flaring. Do you think they'll come to Krokvik next? Perhaps, Bjorn acknowledges. Though winter storms will likely prevent any ship from navigating the fjords for at least a month. By then, we will be prepared. I've already sent messengers to neighboring settlements. When the weather clears, we'll convene a thing to discuss a unified defense. Freydis nods, though the thought of more bloodshed sickens her. She has never been a warrior like her sister, has never found glory or satisfaction in battle. Her skills lie elsewhere, in healing herbs and midwifery, in rune casting, and the old women's magic passed down through generations of her mother's line. Skills overlooked by most, yet vital to the survival of their people through the harsh northern winters. It was these skills that had first drawn Hakon to her, despite the difference in their ages and stations. A warrior can protect a family from enemies, he once told her, but only a wise woman can protect them from hunger, sickness, and the cruelty of winter. The memory brings a fresh wave of grief, but also a flicker of something else, a half-formed thought, an echo of something important hovering just beyond her grasp. Freydis? Thyra's voice breaks through her reverie. You've gone pale. Is the pain worsening? No, Freydis says slowly, the fragments beginning to connect in her mind. I'm remembering something. The raiders. They spoke to each other as they searched our house. I didn't understand their words, but I heard one phrase repeated several times as they overturned chests and ripped apart our bedding. She closes her eyes, concentrating on the memory despite the horror that accompanies it. It sounded like Nickel till Midgård, or something similar. Bjorn stiffens visibly, exchanging a sharp glance with Thyra. Are you certain of this? As certain as I can be, Freydis replies, noting their reaction with growing unease. What does it mean? It's not Rus language, Thyra says carefully. It sounds like our own tongue, but distorted. Nickel till Midgård would mean the key to Midgard in our speech. The key to Midgard, Freydis repeats, the word stirring something deep in her memory. Grandfather used that phrase, in his stories about the founding of Ravnholm. Astrid, who has been quietly tending the fire during this exchange, suddenly makes the sign against evil, her weathered fingers forming ancient runes in the air. "Thorbrand's legacy," she murmurs. "The old tales said he carried something of great power when he came to these shores. Something he claimed was given to him by Odin himself during a vision quest." Freydis's mind races back to childhood evenings spent at her grandfather's knee, listening to tales of his youthful adventures. Thorbrand the far-traveled had journeyed further than most Norsemen of his time, reaching lands across the Great Eastern Sea, trading with strange peoples and learning their customs. He had returned with wealth and wisdom, but also with something he spoke of only in whispers, something he claimed would protect his bloodline through the generations if kept safe. "The amulet," she breathes, the memory suddenly crystal clear. Grandfather's raven amulet. He called it the Eye of Odin, said it would always guide his descendants home. Bjorn steps closer, his voice dropping to an urgent whisper. "Where is this amulet now?" Freydis looks up at him, momentary confusion crossing her features. "With Hakon. He wore it always, hidden beneath his tunic. Grandfather gave it to him on our wedding day, said it should pass to the man who would protect his lineage." A heavy silence falls over the room, broken only by Sigurd's soft, snuffling breaths against Freydis's chest. "Then it burned with him on the pyre," Thyra says finally. "If the raiders sought this amulet, they have failed. It travels now with Hakon's soul to Valhalla." But Freydis is shaking her head, a memory surfacing through the fog of her injuries and grief. No, the morning of the attack. Hakon placed it around my neck. Said he'd had dreams of danger, wanted me to carry it for protection while he hunted. With trembling fingers, she reaches beneath the rough woolen tunic Astrid had dressed her in, drawing forth a leather cord from which hangs a small object wrapped in oiled cloth. Unwrapping it carefully, she reveals a pendant unlike any other. In their lands, a raven fashioned not of silver or gold, but of some dark, glass-like material that seems to absorb rather than reflect the firelight. Its single eye is an inset garnet that gleams with unnatural intensity, and strange markings are etched into the back of the piece. "By the gods," Astrid whispers, taking an involuntary step backward. "It radiates power. I can feel it from here." Bjorn's expression hardens as he stares at the amulet. "If this is what the raiders sought, then you remain in grave danger, Freydis. Once word spreads that there was a survivor from Ravnholm, they will come hunting for you, and for the child of Hakon Ironhand." "Then I must leave," Freydis says, with sudden clarity. "Take Sigrid somewhere they cannot find us." "You can barely stand," Thyra protests. "The wound in your side needs at least another week to heal properly, and winter has only just begun. Where would you go?" "To Mother's people in the western fjords," Freydis replies without hesitation. "The mountain passes will be snow-blocked. To anyone who doesn't know the secret routes, but I remember the way from our childhood journeys. Grandmother's sisters still maintain the old ways there, living apart from men, guarding ancient knowledge. They will shelter us." Bjorn begins to object, but Thyra raises a hand to silence him. She studies her sister with new eyes, seeing not the gentle healer she has always known, but a woman of unexpected depths and determination. "She's right," Thyra says finally. "The women of the Western Enclave have remained hidden for generations. Even most of our own people believe them to be nothing but legend. If anywhere is safe from Eastern raiders, it would be there." "And what of this amulet?" Bjorn demands. "What is its true nature? Why would the Roos come so far to claim it?" Freydis closes her fingers around the raven pendant, feeling its unnatural warmth against her palm. "I don't know its full power or purpose. Grandfather would say only that it was older than our people, that it had been crafted when the boundaries between worlds were thinner. He claimed it could guide the worthy to places of great power, doorways between realms that most mortals never glimpse." "The key to Midgard," Astrid murmurs. Perhaps not a metaphor after all, but a literal description. Whatever its nature, Freydis continues, it has been in our family's keeping for 3 generations without bringing harm. Now it has brought destruction upon Ravnholm. I must understand why, and ensure it never endangers anyone else. The conviction in her voice surprises even herself. Freydis has always been the peacemaker, the healer, content to stay within the boundaries of hearth and home, while others sought adventure or glory. Yet now, holding her daughter against her heart and the mysterious amulet in her hand, she feels a strength awakening within her, a purpose that transcends her grief and pain. "You will need help," Bjorn says after a long moment of consideration. "Supplies, weapons, a proper mount. The journey to the Western Enclave is treacherous even. In good weather, I will provide what she needs," Thyra declares, her hand moving to rest on her sister's shoulder in a rare gesture of affection. "And I will train her in the arts of defense before she leaves. Freydis may not have chosen the warrior's path as I did, but the blood of shield maidens runs in her veins. It's time she embraced that heritage." Freydis looks up at her formidable sister, seeing for the first time not the intimidating figure she has always somewhat feared, but an ally of immeasurable value. "Thank you, sister. I will learn whatever you can teach me." "It will not be easy," Thyra warns. "You must heal first, then train until your muscles scream and your hands blister. The wilderness forgives no weakness, and these raiders, if they return, will show no mercy." "I crawled 7 miles with a spear wound and a newborn," Freydis replies, steel entering her voice. "I watched my husband and my entire village slaughtered. There is nothing you can subject me to that will break me now. For Sigrid, for Hakon's memory, for our grandfather's legacy, I will become whatever I must be." As if recognizing the gravity of her mother's words, Sigrid awakens, her tiny face scrunching in preparation for a lusty cry. Freydis shifts her to her breast, wincing at the 20 leagues away across the frozen Norwegian landscape. A longship, unlike any built in the Norse territories, cuts through the ice-choked waters of the northern fjord. Its hull is lower and sleeker than Viking vessels, its bow carved not with dragons, but with the snarling visage of a wolf whose eyes are inlaid with polished amber. Oars move in perfect unison, driven by men whose faces bear the distinctive scarification of the Eastern Rus clans. At the helm stands Rurik Volkov, his imposing frame wrapped in furs of Arctic wolf, his black beard braided with gold and bone talismans that mark his status among his people. Rurik's pale eyes scan the shoreline with predatory focus, noting the positions of small fishing villages and isolated farmsteads that dot the coastal regions. Unlike most raiders who strike quickly and vanish with their plunder, he studies the terrain with the careful assessment of a conqueror planning permanent occupation. Behind him, 30 of his finest warriors maintain a watchful silence, their weapons kept sharp and ready despite the bitter cold that numbs fingers and freezes breath in the air. "The settlement called Krokvik lies beyond the next headland," says Gunnar Halfhand, a Norwegian turncoat who serves as Rurik's guide and interpreter. Once a respected trader among the Norse, Gunnar now wears the furs and markings of the Rus, though his Nordic features and accent remain unmistakable. Larger than Ravnholm, perhaps 150 souls, better defenses. Rurik acknowledges this information with the barest inclination of his head. When he speaks, his Norse is heavily accented but intelligible, learned during years of trading and raiding along the Baltic coastlines. Their defenses matter little. We seek information, not conquest, not yet. His hand moves to the iron hammer that hangs at his belt, its head inscribed with symbols that match neither Norse runes nor Rus-written language. "The woman and child, are your sources certain they survived?" Gunnar nods, his expression carefully neutral beneath his half-frozen beard. "My kin in these lands confirm it. A woman of Ravnholm reached a hunting lodge 4 days ago, crawling through snow with a spear wound in her side and an infant clutched to her breast. The wife of Håkon Ironhand, they say, daughter of Thorbrand's line. Freydis Ragnarsdottir. Daughter of Thorbrand, Rurik repeats, something like respect flickering briefly across his harsh features. The blood runs true, it seems. Her grandfather eluded me for 20 years before old age claimed him. Now his granddaughter proves equally difficult to kill. He turns to face Gunnar fully, his massive hand gripping the Norwegian's shoulder with bruising force. This woman? She carries the key? The amulet was not found among the dead at Ravnholm, Gunnar confirms, wincing slightly under Rurik's grasp. If legends of its power are true, it would explain how she survived when all others perished. The eye of Odin protects its bearer. Rurik's mouth twists in what might be amusement or contempt. Not Odin's eye, fool. The artifact predates your childish gods by 1,000 years. My ancestors guarded its secrets when yours were still huddling in animal skins, worshipping rocks and trees. He releases Gunnar's shoulder and turns back to the water, where ice floes crack and split before their vessel's reinforced prow. For 6 generations, my line has sought the key. My great-grandfather traced it to Thorbrand when the old raider stole it from our temple during the Great Eastern Trading Expedition. Now, at last, it will return to those who understand its true power. And the woman? The child? Gunnar asks, rubbing his shoulder surreptitiously. Rurik's expression hardens to granite. The bloodline of Thorbrand must end. The child, especially. Legends say the key bonds most strongly to those with the founder's blood. An infant, raised to our ways, bearing both the blood connection and the key. His voice trails off, possibilities gleaming in his pale eyes. The settlements are alerted now, Gunnar warns. After Ravnholm, they will have strengthened their defenses, perhaps even united against outside threats. A direct assault on Krokvik would be costly. Which is why we will not attack, Rurik replies with cold calculation. Not immediately. Winter works to our advantage. They are isolated, suspicious. Fear will spread faster than any warning. He gestures to a warrior who stands apart from the others, a slender figure whose black furs and hidden face mark them as different even among this company of killers. The figure approaches silently, moving with uncanny grace despite the ships, rocking beneath their feet. When they speak, the voice is unexpectedly feminine, though hard as forged steel. My lord requires the shadow's touch? She asks in the Rus tongue. The fabled Skiga, Rurik confirms, switching back to his native language. The people of these fjords fear you more than they fear our blades. Your name alone will make them bar their doors and watch their neighbors with suspicion. The woman lowers her hood, revealing a face of striking beauty, marred by a network of ritual scars that trace patterns across her pale skin like a spider's web. Her eyes are a startling amber, almost gold in the weak winter light. The woman, who escaped you? You wish her found? Found and observed, Rurik corrects. Learn where she shelters, who protects her, what plans they make. Do not engage unless the opportunity is perfect. The child must be taken alive and the amulet secured, without damage. The woman called Skiga, Shadow, inclines her head in acknowledgement. And the mother? Rurik's smile does not reach his eyes. Use your judgment. If she can be taken quietly for questioning about the key's powers, do so. If not, ensure. Her death appears natural. Illness, accident. Nothing that would rally these Norse settlements into unified action against us. It shall be done, Skiga replies, pulling her hood back into place. With your permission, I will take a small boat to shore when we reach the next cove. Moving alone, I can reach Krokvik by nightfall tomorrow. Rurik nods his approval, then dismisses her with a gesture. As Skiga moves away to prepare her equipment, Gunnar leans closer to the Rus leader, his voice dropping to ensure privacy. The Shadow Woman unsettles even your own warriors, he observes. The stories of her methods have reached even my ears. They say she can walk through walls like a ghost, that she drinks the breath of sleeping victims, that no lock or guard can keep her out. Most of those tales were started by Skigga herself, Rurik replies with grim amusement. Fear weakens resolve, loosens tongues, makes enemies careless. But make no mistake, while the tales may be exaggerated, her skills are not. She has infiltrated fortresses considered impregnable, extracted information from victims who swore they would die before speaking. And you trust her with this task? The key is beyond value. Rurik's expression darkens. I trust her obedience, not her loyalty. There is a difference. Skigga serves me because I hold something she values above. Her own life? Should she forget that arrangement? He touches the strange hammer at his belt again, and something ancient and terrible flickers in his eyes. Let us say that death would seem a merciful alternative. As night falls, the rush ship finds shelter in a hidden cove, its distinctive profile concealed by overhanging cliffs. The warriors make camp with practiced efficiency, lighting fires small enough to avoid detection from nearby settlements. Rurik sits apart from his men, studying a collection of ancient scrolls protected within oilskin wrappings. By the dim light of a shielded lamp, he traces symbols identical to those found on the hammer at his belt, and murmurs words in a language older than any still spoken in the known world. Far ahead of the raiding party, moving silently through the deepening darkness, Skigga navigates the snow-covered landscape with the confidence of one born to these harsh conditions. Her steps leave almost no impression in the fresh snow, her breathing so controlled it barely creates vapor in the frigid air. In her wake, a single raven follows, keeping high above and occasionally emitting a soft croak that might be mistaken for nothing more than a nightbird's call. Inside the hunting lodge, Freydis awakens suddenly from uneasy sleep, her hand instinctively moving to the amulet that hangs around her neck. Though the wound in her side still aches fiercely, her fever has broken, and with each passing day, her strength returns incrementally. Beside her, Sigrid sleeps peacefully in a makeshift cradle fashioned from a wooden food storage box, lined with furs to keep the infant warm against the bitter winter night. What troubles you, sister? Thyra asks softly from her position near the door, where she has taken the night watch. Always the warrior, she sits with a sword across her knees, her keen eyes periodically scanning the darkness beyond the lodge's single window. A dream, Freydis answers, her voice still rough with sleep. Or perhaps a warning. I saw a shadow moving across snow, leaving no footprints, and behind it, death followed like a faithful hound. Thyra's expression remains impassive, but her hand tightens almost imperceptibly on her sword hilt. Among their people, the prophetic dreams of women, especially those who practice the old magic as Freydis does, are never dismissed lightly. We leave for Krokvik at first light, she says after a moment's consideration. Bjorn has gone ahead to prepare the settlement for our arrival and organize additional guards for the journey to the Western Enclave. You will be safer there, within walls, with more warriors to stand between danger and your child. Freydis nods, but her eyes remain troubled as she gazes down at Sigrid's sleeping form. No walls will stop what hunts us, sister. I feel it in my bones, in the whispers of the wind. It comes not with force of arms, but with stealth and cunning. Then we will meet cunning with cunning, Thyra replies with grim determination. You are not alone in this fight, Freydis. Remember that. As dawn approaches, casting faint gray light across the snow-covered landscape, Bjorn Ravenson and 4 of Krokvik's strongest warriors make their way toward the hunting lodge. They travel alert, weapons ready, eyes constantly scanning the terrain for any sign of threat. The massacre at Ravnholm has shaken even these hardened men, accustomed as they are to the violence of their world. The women should have remained in Krokvik, mutters Ulf Grimson, youngest of the group and most vocal in his disapproval of Thira's decision to join the healing party at the lodge. especially with rumors of the Shadow Walker spreading through the settlements. Bjorn fixes the younger man with a stern gaze. You speak of my wife, Ulf, the finest shield maiden in 3 fjords. I would match her blade against yours any day. I meant no disrespect, Ulf amends hastily. Only concern. These eastern raiders, they fight differently than we do. The butchery at Ravnholm, which is precisely why I wanted Thera with her. Sister, Bjorn cuts him off. If anyone could protect Freydis during those critical first days, it would be her. He pauses, considering his next words carefully. And as for the Shadow Walker, those are just tales to frighten children. But even as he speaks, Bjorn's eyes search the tree line with heightened vigilance. The stories reaching Krokvik have grown more detailed with each passing day. Whispers of a woman who moves like mist between the trees, who can enter locked homes without a sound, who leaves no tracks in fresh snow. Most disturbing are the accounts of her victims, found in their beds looking peaceful as if in sleep, yet cold as ice with expressions of unspeakable terror frozen on their faces. There, says Kolbein One Eye, the oldest and most experienced of their party, pointing toward a ridge where a solitary raven perches, watching their progress with unusual intensity. That bird has followed us since we left the settlement. Ravens are common enough, Ulf replies with forced casualness, though his hand moves unconsciously to the Thor's hammer amulet that hangs at his neck. Scavengers looking for scraps. Not. In midwinter, Kolbein counters, his single eye narrowing. And not alone. Ravens hunt in pairs or flocks when food is scarce. A solitary raven, watching but not approaching. He makes a sign against evil, muttering a prayer to Thor under his breath. Bjorn follows his gaze, studying the black bird with newfound wariness. In the tales of their people, ravens are messengers of Odin, but they are also harbingers of death, choosing battlefields before the fighting even begins as if foreseeing the feast of corpses to come. We're less than an hour from the lodge, he says grimly. Let's quicken our pace. As they continue their journey, none of the men notice the slender figure that moves parallel to their path, keeping to the shadows of the pine forest that borders the trail. Skigga observes the warriors with professional assessment, noting their formations, their weapons, the patterns of their vigilance. Most importantly, she confirms what her informants have already told her, that the woman who escaped the Ravnholm massacre is indeed being moved to Krokvik, likely this very day. The raven launches from its perch, circling once above the men before flying ahead toward the hunting lodge. To most observers, it would appear to be nothing more than a bird following its nature. But Skigga watches its flight with satisfaction, knowing the creature returns to its mistress with confirmation of the approaching party. At the lodge, Freydis stands at the window, her daughter secured in a sling across her chest, watching the chew ravens approach with a mixture of apprehension and resignation. Though still weak from her injuries, she has insisted on dressing herself in traveling clothes, a simple woolen dress beneath layers of fur, sturdy boots, and leather gloves, lined with rabbit fur. Around her neck, hidden beneath her garments, the mysterious amulet pulses with warmth against her skin. They come, she says softly to Thera, who is efficiently packing the last of their supplies. Bjorn leads them, 5 men in total. They will reach us before midday. Thera pauses, studying her sister with newfound respect. Your sight grows stronger. I see no one from here. Not sight, Freydis corrects, gesturing toward the raven now landing on a nearby pine. The ravens speak to those who know how to listen. Grandmother taught me the old ways, though I've rarely had cause to use them. Until now. Thera accepts, this without comment, though a flicker of unease crosses her features. Like most in their settlement, she maintains a careful balance between the new faith being brought by traders from the south and the old ways of their ancestors. Freydis has always leaned more heavily toward the ancient practices, a tendency That has occasionally made her an object of suspicion among the more conservative elements of their community. "Can your ravens tell you who else watches from the shadows?" Thyra asks after a moment, buckling on her sword belt with practiced movements. Freydis turns from the window, her expression grave. "Something follows Bjorn's party, something that wishes us harm. I cannot see it clearly, but I feel its malice like ice in my veins." "Then we must be ready," Thyra replies, handing Freydis a short sword in a simple leather scabbard. "You remember what I showed you?" Freydis takes the weapon, its weight unfamiliar but not entirely foreign to her hands. During their days at the Lodge, Thyra has spent hours drilling her sister in basic defensive techniques, focusing on moves that require minimal strength and can be executed while protecting an infant. "Keep the blade between myself and danger," Freydis recites, securing the sword at her hip where it can be easily drawn. "Strike at exposed areas, throat, eyes, joints. Never hesitate once I've committed to the attack. And above all, survive," Freydis finishes, her voice hardening with resolve. "Whatever the cost, whatever the means, survive for Sigrid." Thyra nods in approval, then crosses to the door, her keen eyes scanning the approach to the lodge. "They'll be here within the hour. We should be ready to depart as soon as they arrive. The days are short, and I do not wish to be caught in the open after nightfall." As she speaks, a chill breeze sweeps through the lodge despite the closed door and shuttered windows, extinguishing the fire that had been burning steadily in the hearth. Both women freeze, instantly alert, their breath suddenly visible in the rapidly cooling air. "It's here," Freydis whispers, clutching Sigrid tighter against her chest as the infant begins to whimper, sensing her mother's fear. "The shadow from my dreams." Thyra draws her sword in one fluid motion, positioning herself between the door and her sister. "Stay behind me. Whatever comes, let it face steel before it reaches you or the child." Outside, the raven gives a single, sharp cry of warning before taking flight, winging away as if fleeing some unseen threat. The sunlight seems to dim, though no clouds cross the sky, and the snow around the lodge takes on a grayish cast as if suddenly covered in ash. "No," Freydis says suddenly, her free hand grasping her sister's arm. "Not the door, the window. It comes from..." Before she can finish, the shutters explode inward, sending splinters of wood flying through the lodge's interior. Through the opening slips a figure that seems more shadow than substance, a slender form wrapped in black furs, face hidden behind a mask fashioned from dark leather embossed with symbols neither woman recognizes. Thyra reacts instantly, lunging forward with a warrior's cry, her blade aimed at the intruder's chest. But Skiggy moves with inhuman speed, twisting away from the thrust and drawing her own weapon in the same motion, a curved dagger with a serrated edge that gleams with an oily substance in the dim light. "The child of Hakon Ironhand," Skaiga says, her voice carrying the harsh accent of the eastern lands. "My master sends his regards." Thyra attacks again, more cautiously this time, forcing the intruder back toward the broken window. "Your master sent butchers to Ravnholm," she spits. "Cowards who slaughter sleeping families and call themselves warriors." Skigga parries Thyra's blade with her dagger, the metals meeting with a sound like winter ice cracking. "Not butchers," she corrects, her golden eyes visible through slits in her mask, cold and calculating. "Hunters. We sought specific prey." Her gaze shifts to Freydis, or more specifically, to the slight bulge beneath the furs where the amulet rests. "The key belongs to my people. Surrender it and the child and you may yet live." "Never," Freydis replies, her voice steadier than she feels, one hand moving to the hilt of her sword while the other supports Sigrid. "This amulet has been in my family for generations. It is bound to our bloodline by oaths and magic your master cannot hope to understand." A sound that might be laughter comes from behind Skigga's mask. "You speak of understanding? Your grandfather stole the key from its rightful guardians. He barely glimpsed its true purpose. its power. My master is the last living descendant of those who crafted it when the world was young. He alone knows the words that will unlock the doorways between realms. Thyra uses the distraction of conversation to launch another attack, this time aiming low at the intruder's legs. But Skigga seems to anticipate the move, leaping with impossible grace to land atop the lodge's central table, her balance perfect despite the uneven surface. Impressive, she acknowledges. But futile. I did not come to battle shield maidens today, only to deliver a message and assess my quarry. From within her furs, she produces a small clay vial sealed with wax. With a flick of her wrist, she sends it smashing to the floor, where it breaks open to release a cloud of greenish powder that quickly fills the small lodge. Breathe deeply, daughters of Thorbrand, Skigga says, her own breathing unaffected thanks to the protective mask she wears. When next we meet, I will take what my master seeks. This is merely a courteous warning. The powder burns Freydis's throat and lungs, sending her to her knees as she struggles to breathe. Beside her, Thyra fares little better, though she remains standing through sheer force of will, her sword still pointed defiantly at the intruder. Tell your master, Thyra gasps between coughing fits, that the line of Thorbrand does not yield to threats. So I see, Skigga replies, moving toward the window with the same uncanny grace. He will be pleased. It has been many years since he faced worthy adversaries. The hunt grows dull when prey surrenders too easily. With those words, she slips through the window and vanishes as suddenly as she appeared, leaving the sisters fighting for breath in the poison-filled air. Freydis, protecting Sigrid as best she can by covering the infant's face with a corner of her cloak, drags herself toward the door on one arm, desperate to reach fresh air before the powder overwhelms them completely. Thyra staggers to the door, throwing it open to allow the winter wind to disperse the noxious cloud. As clean air gradually fills the lodge, both women's breathing eases, though the burning sensation lingers in their throats and lungs. Are you injured? Thyra asks hoarsely, kneeling beside her sister. Freydis shakes her head, checking Sigrid. Anxiously, the baby coughs weakly but appears otherwise unharmed, having been partially shielded from the worst effects of the powder. It was her, the shadow from my dreams, Freydis says, struggling back to her feet with Thyra's assistance. She could have killed us all, but she chose not to. Why? To spread fear, Thyra replies grimly, gathering their scattered belongings with renewed urgency. To demonstrate her power. To make us doubt our ability to protect you and the child. Freydis touches the amulet through her clothing, feeling its unnatural warmth. She called it the key, said it could unlock doorways between realms. What if grandfather stole something truly dangerous? What if this amulet is more than just a protective charm? Before Thyra can respond, sounds of approach reach them, the crunch of snow beneath multiple boots, voices calling out. Bjorn's rescue party has arrived, too late to confront the threat, but perhaps just in time to provide additional protection for the dangerous journey ahead. Questions for another time, Thyra says, helping Freydis secure her cloak. For now, we must reach Krokvik before nightfall. The shadow may return with greater numbers, and next time, she may not be content with delivering warnings. As they exit the lodge to meet Bjorn's approaching party, the raven returns, circling overhead before landing on a branch directly above Freydis. It fixes her with an unnervingly intelligent gaze, then opens its beak to emit a sound that could almost be words. Ragnarok comes. The key turns. Blood will tell. Whether hallucination from the poison, or something more supernatural, the effect on Freydis is profound. Despite the danger behind and the uncertainty ahead, a strange calm settles over her. The blood of Thorbrand flows through her veins, and now, it seems, his legacy falls to her. Whatever secrets the amulet holds, whatever powers seek to claim it and her child, she will face them with the same determination that carried her through 7 miles of snow with a spear wound in her side. "Come," she says to Thyra, stepping forward to meet Bjorn and his warriors. Krokvik awaits, and beyond it, our true journey begins. The journey to Krokvik unfolds in tense silence, with Bjorn and his warriors forming a protective circle around Freydis and Thyra. The winter sun hangs low in the sky, casting long shadows across the snow-covered landscape as they make their way along the narrow coastal path. Freydis rides double with her sister on Thyra's sturdy mountain pony, Sigrid secured tightly against her chest in a sling made from woven wool and leather. Though the wound in her side throbs with each step of the horse's hooves, Freydis maintains a stoic expression, unwilling to show weakness before these hardened warriors. Her mind, however, churns with conflicting emotions, grief for Håkon, and their destroyed village warring with a fierce determination to protect their daughter. Uncertainty about the amulet's true nature battles against her grandfather's unwavering faith in its protective powers, and beneath it all runs a current of doubt about her own abilities. She is a healer, not a warrior, raised to create life, rather than take it. "You've gone quiet," Thyra observes, her voice low enough that only her sister can hear. "What troubles you beyond the obvious?" Freydis hesitates, her gaze drawn to the horizon where the smoke from Krokvik's hearth fires rises in thin columns against the darkening sky. "I never wanted this path," she admits finally. "The gods know I have always been content with a simpler life, herbs and healing, home and hearth. Now I find myself responsible for an artifact of power I don't understand, hunted by enemies I never made, carrying a legacy I never asked to bear." Thyra's expression softens momentarily, a rare occurrence for the hardened shield maiden. "None of us choose the weird the Norns weave for us, sister. The threads of fate are spun without concern for our desires." "But that's just it," Freydis persists, one hand unconsciously moving to touch the hidden amulet. "Is this truly my weird, or am I merely catching the loose threads of grandfather's unfinished business? Should I flee with this burden, drawing danger away from our people, or stay and fight for a homeland that may be destroyed because of the very artifact I carry?" The question hangs in the air between them, unanswered as Bjorn raises his hand, signaling a halt. Ahead, the path narrows where it passes between two sheer rock faces, a perfect place for an ambush. The warriors dismount silently, drawing weapons as they advance to secure the passage. As they wait, a raven's harsh call echoes between the cliffs. Freydis looks up, recognizing the same bird that has followed them since the hunting lodge. It circles once overhead before landing on a nearby outcropping, its intelligent eyes fixed upon her with unsettling intensity. Odin watches, murmurs, Ulf, the youngest of Bjorn's warriors, making the sign of the hammer over his heart. Freydis studies the raven, remembering her grandmother's teachings. In the old ways, ravens were not just Odin's messengers, but connections to ancestral wisdom. She closes her eyes, centering herself despite the pain and exhaustion, reaching out with senses beyond the physical as her grandmother had taught her. A vision flashes behind her closed eyelids. A woman standing in swirling snow, arms raised, toward the stormy sky, while ravens circle above her. The woman's face shifts between Freydis's own and her grandmother's, then settles on features she recognizes from childhood memories. Her grandfather Thorbrand, fierce and proud in his prime. The vision speaks in Thorbrand's voice, carried on the winter wind. The blood remembers, even when the mind forgets. The key awakens only to our line. Guard it well, daughter of my blood, until the time comes to use it. When Freydis opens her eyes, the raven remains, watching her with ancient knowledge in its gaze. Understanding flows through her like a current of icy water. The amulet has been waiting, dormant for generations, its full power accessible only to those of Thorbrand's direct lineage. Her grandfather had stolen it not for personal gain, but to prevent others from misusing its power, entrusting its protection to his descendants. Bjorn returns, reporting the passage clear, and they continue their journey. But something has shifted within Freydis. Her doubts haven't vanished, but alongside them now grows a sense of purpose, of destiny accepted rather than fought against. If the amulet has passed to her keeping, there must be reason beyond mere chance. As they crest the final ridge overlooking Krokvik, Freydis straightens in the saddle, one hand protectively covering Sigrid while the other touches the hidden amulet. Whatever comes, she will face it, not just for her daughter, but for all those who might suffer if the key's power falls into the wrong hands. The settlement spreads below them, wooden palisades encircling longhouses and storerooms, smoke rising from dozens of hearth fires. Larger than Ravnholm had been, Krokvik occupies a defensible position with the sea at its back and steep slopes protecting two sides. Guards patrol the walls, their vigilance heightened since news of Ravnholm's destruction reached them. Their arrival causes immediate stir. The great horn sounds from the watchtower, signaling recognized allies returning. Villagers gather as the gates swing open, faces showing curiosity mixed with wariness. Strangers bring danger in these uncertain times, even when accompanied by known warriors. Astrid Grimsdottir stands at the forefront, having clearly traveled ahead after tending to Freydis at the hunting lodge. Krokvik welcomes Freydis Ragnarsdottir and her child, she announces formally as they enter. May our walls offer you the shelter you seek, and our hearths warm your journey-weary bones. The traditional greeting of hospitality brings unexpected tears to Freydis's eyes. After days of danger and uncertainty, the simple human kindness represented in those ancient words nearly undoes her composure. They are led to the great hall where Jarl Sigurd, Krokvik's leader, awaits with his council. An imposing figure with iron-gray beard and battle-scarred face, the Jarl studies Freydis with keen assessment as Bjorn recounts the events at Ravnholm and the hunting lodge. So the Eastern wolves hunt more than mere plunder, he says when Bjorn finishes, his deep voice carrying easily through the hall. They seek an artifact of power, and the blood of those who can wield it. His gaze shifts to Sigrid, sleeping, peacefully in Freydis's arms. The last of Thorbrand's direct line. Not the last, declares a voice from the entrance. All heads turn to see a hooded figure leaning heavily on a staff carved with ancient runes. As the stranger pushes back his hood, gasps ripple through the assembly. Though aged beyond his years, face deeply lined and once powerful frame now bent and thin, the man's identity is unmistakable to any who knew him in his prime. Grandfather? Freydis whispers, disbelieving. Thorbrand the far-traveled stands before them, eyes still fierce despite his weathered appearance. Death has not claimed me yet, though not for lack of trying, he says with a ghost of his legendary humor. I've watched from the shadows, keeping my survival secret even from family, knowing that while I lived, those I loved would remain targets for the Eastern hunters. He approaches Freydis slowly, pain evident in each step. Forgive an old man's deception, child. I thought my death would end their pursuit, that the amulet, passed to Hakon's keeping, would fade from their interest without my blood to activate its powers. How? Thyra demands, always practical. We burned your funeral pyre ourselves after the fever took you. A carefully constructed ruse, Thorbrand admits. The body was crafted by the Western women, a simulacrum of herbs and magic that would pass casual inspection. I fled to their hidden valley while mourners gathered, beginning a life in exile, to protect my family. His face darkens with grief. Yet my deception failed. They came anyway, following rumors of the key, and Ravnholm paid the price for my miscalculation. He extends a gnarled hand toward Freydis, palm up. Show me what you carry, granddaughter. With trembling fingers, Freydis draws forth the raven amulet from beneath her tunic. It pulses with subtle light in her palm, the garnet eye gleaming as if alive. When Thorbrand's fingers touch it, the light intensifies briefly before fading. Back to normal. The key recognizes its guardian, he murmurs. It has chosen you, Freydis, as I suspected it might. Always you showed greater affinity for the old ways than your sister or cousins. He looks up, meeting her confused gaze. It's time you learned the full truth of what you carry, and why Rurik Volkov will never stop hunting you while breath remains in his body. Through the long night, within the secure walls of Jarl Sigurd's private chamber, Thorbrand reveals secrets kept hidden for decades. The key, he explains, was not created by human hands but forged in an age when the boundaries between worlds were more permeable, when beings from other realms walked freely upon Midgard. It opens doorways not just between physical locations, but between the 9 worlds themselves. I stole it from Volkov's ancestors because they planned to use it to invade Asgard itself, Thorbrand reveals, his voice dropping to ensure only family hears these dangerous truths. They believed they could challenge the gods, seize divine power, become masters of all realms. Their ambition would have unleashed chaos beyond imagining. You used it, Freydis says. Not a question, but a certainty born of her earlier vision. Thorbrand nods gravely. Once, only once, to see if their claims of its power were true. His eyes grow distant with remembered horror. I stepped through a doorway expecting to find another location on Midgard. Instead, I walked upon the shores of hell itself, where things that should not be seen crawled at the edges of vision. I fled back through the portal knowing the key must never be used again, that the barriers between worlds must remain intact for the safety of all. Yet now Volkov seeks it anew, Thyra states, and Freydis stands in his path. He believes he has found the ritual that would grant him full control of the key's power, Thorbrand confirms. A ceremony requiring the blood of its bonded guardian, willingly given or forcibly taken. With it, he could open permanent pathways between worlds, allowing forces from beyond to enter our realm while his armies march into others. Freydis clutches Sigrid tighter, horrified by the implications. And my daughter? Why does he seek her? The blood bond passes strongest through the female line, Thorbrand explains sorrowfully. An infant descendant, raised from birth to commune with the key, would become a living gateway, more powerful than the amulet itself could ever be in adult hands. Volkov would shape her into his ultimate weapon. Jarl Sigurd, who has listened silently until now, stands decisively. Then we will protect them both with every warrior Krokvik can muster. Let these eastern wolves come. They will find northern bears waiting. But Thorbrand shakes his head. Brave words, but Volkov commands forces beyond conventional understanding. The woman called Skyga is but one example, a shadow walker trained in arts forgotten by most, capable of breaching any physical defense. Then what hope remains? Thyra demands, frustration evident in her tone. The Western Enclave, Thorbrand answers. The wise women who sheltered me maintain ancient protections Volkov cannot easily breach. They have guarded secrets older than the key itself, preparing for this conflict since I first sought their aid decades ago. His gaze turns to Freydis. They have waited for you, granddaughter, for the one who would unite the key's power with healing hands rather than a warrior's ambition. Dawn breaks over Krokvik as preparations commence with urgent efficiency. Warriors strengthen defenses while Thorbrand and Freydis work with the settlement's craftswomen, creating a special carrying harness that will secure Sigrid against her mother's chest while leaving Freydis's hands free. Nearby, Thera practices with a select group who will accompany them on the dangerous journey to the Western Enclave, a route Thorbrand insists they must take immediately, before Volkov's forces draw closer. 3 days hard travel if the weather holds, he estimates, tracing the path on a crude map drawn in the dirt. Through the Wolf's Teeth Pass where the old stone markers still stand, the wise women will watch for our approach. As evening approaches, scouts return with grim news. 3 longships have been spotted navigating the northern fjord despite treacherous ice conditions. Rurik Volkov himself stands at the prow of the lead vessel, a massive figure in wolf furs, directing his men with absolute authority. "We leave at nightfall," Thorbrand declares. "Darkness will provide some cover for our departure." "And the settlement?" Jarl Sigurd asks, concern evident for his people. "Make visible preparations for defense," Thorbrand advises. "Let Volkov believe we intend to stand and fight. His pride will demand he accept the challenge, giving us precious time to distance ourselves before he realizes Freydis and the key are gone." As the sun sets, casting long shadows across Krokvik's busy courtyard, Freydis stands at the eastern wall, Sigrid secured against her chest in the new carrying harness. The raven amulet hangs openly now around her neck, its weight a constant reminder of the responsibility she has inherited. "Are you ready for this journey?" Thyra asks, joining her sister at the wall. Unlike previous days, she now speaks to Freydis, with the respect due an equal, recognizing that different paths can lead to equal courage. "No," Freydis answers honestly. "I am a healer, not an adventurer. I know herbs and childbirth, not mountain passes and ancient magic." She touches the amulet gently, feeling its familiar warmth. Yet the blood remembers what the mind forgets. As grandfather says, "Something in me has been preparing for this challenge since before I was born." The raven that has followed them since the hunting lodge appears suddenly, landing on the wall beside them. In its beak, it carries a small twig of unusual appearance. Leaves still green despite the winter season. Berries of a deep blue rarely seen in these northern climes. "Yggdrasil," Freydis whispers, recognizing the sacred plant from her grandmother's teachings. "The world tree that connects all realms." The raven drops the twig at her feet, then fixes her with that same unsettlingly intelligent gaze she has come to expect. In that moment, certainty flows through Freydis like a purifying flame. This journey is indeed her word, her destiny, not thrust upon her by chance, but a path she was born to walk. She picks up the twig, securing it alongside the amulet. "I am ready," she tells Thyra, her voice stronger than it has been since Ravnholm's fall. Night descends fully as their small party gathers at Krokvik's hidden postern gate, a narrow opening in the western wall, concealed by clever construction and rarely used. Besides Freydis with Sigrid and the aged Thorbrand, the group includes Thyra, Bjorn, young Ulf, and 3 experienced warriors from Krokvik who know the mountain paths. Jarl Sigurd himself comes to see them off, clasping forearms with each in the warriors' farewell. "May Odin guide your steps and Thor strengthen your arms," he tells them formally. "Krokvik will stand firm against the eastern wolves, drawing their attention while you reach safety. And may you live to celebrate the victory feast," Thorbrand replies with grim humor. "We'll return with reinforcements from the western enclave, fighters of a different sort than Volkov expects." They slip out into the darkness, moving quickly away from the settlement's torchlit walls toward the looming shadows of the western mountains. Above them, stars glitter coldly in the clear winter sky, while the distant glow of Volkov's campfires marks where his forces have landed north of the settlement. For 3 days they travel, pushing themselves to the limits of endurance. The mountain paths grow increasingly treacherous, narrow ledges overlooking dizzying drops, ice-slick passages between towering stones, dense forests where ancient pines block all light. Thorbrand leads despite his age, drawing on memories of his earlier exile to guide them true, while Thyra and Bjorn guard their flanks against pursuers. On the dawn of the 4th day, disaster strikes. As they navigate a particularly narrow ridge, loose stones give way beneath Thorbrand's feet. He slips, crying out, and would have fallen to certain death if not for Bjorn's swift reflexes. The warrior catches the old man, hauling him back to safety, but the noise echoes across the mountainside. Within minutes, answering calls ring out from below, Volkov's scouts, having somehow anticipated their route, closing in from multiple directions. "They've found us!" Thyra hisses, drawing her sword. How? The Shadow Walker, Freydis realizes with sudden clarity. She's been tracking us since Krokvik, staying just out of sight. As if summoned by her words, a dark figure appears on the ridge above them. Skyga in her distinctive black furs, golden eyes gleaming behind her mask. This time she is not alone. Warriors in Eastern garb materialize from concealed positions along their planned route, effectively trapping them on the narrow mountain path. Nowhere left to run, old thief, calls a deep voice as a massive figure emerges from behind a towering pine. Rurik Volkov stands before them in all his terrible majesty, taller than any Norseman, his wolf fur cloak billowing in the mountain. Wind, the strange hammer at his belt glowing with unnatural light that matches the amulet at Freydis's throat. Volkov, Thorbrand acknowledges, straightening despite the pain of his near fall. Still chasing shadows and dreams, I see. No dreams, the Rus chieftain replies, his accented Norse carrying easily across the distance between them. Soon, very tangible power. His pale eyes shift to Freydis, narrowing at the sight of the amulet displayed openly around her neck. The key has awakened to your blood, daughter of Thorbrand. I can see its light pulsing in rhythm with your heartbeat. You cannot have it, Freydis declares, one hand covering Sigrid protectively while the other grasps the amulet. Nor will? You take my daughter to use as your tool. Volkov's lip curls in what might be appreciation or contempt. Brave words from a wounded woman, but this ends today, one way or another. He gestures to his warriors, who begin advancing from both directions along the narrow path, forcing Freydis's group to cluster together with sheer drops on either side. Surrender the key and the child, Volkov continues, and your companions may live. Resist, and I will take them anyway after your friends lie dead at your feet. Thera and Bjorn move to stand before Freydis, weapons ready despite the hopelessness of their position. Young Ulf and the other Krokvik warriors form a defensive circle, faces grim but determined. Thorbrand stands tall despite his age and recent injury, placing himself between his granddaughter and Volkov. You've forgotten one thing, Rurik Volkov, the old man says, his voice carrying unexpected strength. The key is not merely a tool, it is alive in its way, with will and purpose of its own. It chooses its guardians as much as they choose to bear it. Freydis feels the amulet grow suddenly hot against her skin, the raven's garnet eye glowing with inner fire. The twig of Yggdrasil tucked alongside it begins to glow with the same light, green leaves shimmering with power that seems to flow into the amulet and then into Freydis herself. Knowledge unfolds in her mind like a flower blooming in spring, not placed there by external forces, but awakening from within, as if she has always known these truths, but could only access them in this moment of greatest need. The key's purpose, its powers, how to channel its energies safely. Understanding floods through her in a torrent that would overwhelm, if not for the healing discipline her grandmother taught her years ago. Grandfather, she says quietly. Her voice changed somehow, deeper, resonant with newfound power. I know what to do. Thorbrand turns, eyes widening at whatever he sees in her face. The blood remembers, he murmurs in wonder. Indeed it does, Freydis confirms, stepping forward between her protectors. Stand ready, all of you. When the moment comes, be prepared to move quickly. Volkov watches this exchange with growing wariness, sensing the shift in energy. Enough talk, he snaps, gesturing his warriors forward. Take them. As eastern blades clash with Norse steel, Freydis closes her eyes, one hand holding the amulet while the other secures Sigrid against her chest. She focuses inward, drawing on her healer's training to center herself amidst the chaos of battle. The key responds, its warmth spreading through her body, connecting her to something vast and ancient that exists between worlds rather than within any one. When her eyes open, they gleam with the same garnet light as the amulet. She raises her hand, and where it points, reality itself seems to ripple like water disturbed by a thrown stone. The air shimmers, then parts like a curtain being drawn aside, revealing a doorway where none existed before. An opening not in the physical mountain, but in the fabric of existence itself. Beyond lies not empty space, but a sunlit valley sheltered. Between peaks she recognizes from her grandmother's descriptions the western enclave, hidden from mortal eyes by more than mere distance. "Now," she commands, her voice carrying over the sounds of combat. Thorbrand moves first, understanding instantly what she has accomplished. He ducks past a rust blade and dives through the portal, vanishing from the mountainside to appear safely in the valley beyond. Thyra reacts next, dragging a wounded Ulf with her through the opening. "Impossible!" Volkov roars, abandoning caution to charge forward, the strange hammer raised high. "The ritual, the blood offering, these are required." "Not by one born to the key's keeping," Freydis counters, maintaining her concentration despite the chaos surrounding her. "The blood freely given in protection supersedes blood taken by force." Bjorn and the remaining Krokvik warriors retreat through the portal as Volkov's forces press their advantage. Only Freydis remains on the mountainside, holding the doorway open while cradling Sigrid against her. The infant, remarkably, remains calm throughout, her tiny hand reaching up to touch the glowing amulet with instinctive understanding. Volkov himself reaches Freydis just as she steps backward into the portal. His hand grasps for the key, fingers closing on the leather cord around her neck. For one terrible moment, they are connected. Freydis half in one world, half in another, with Volkov attempting to drag her back. The amulet flares blindingly bright, its power surging in response to the threat. Freydis feels something tear. Not the cord around her neck, but the very boundaries between worlds straining under the opposing forces. With sudden clarity, she understands the danger. If the portal collapses with them connected this way, both she and Volkov could be trapped between realms forever. "Let go!" she commands, summoning all her newfound power into her voice. "Or we both perish between worlds." For a moment, raw fear shows in Volkov's pale eyes, fear not of death, but of the unknown limbo that threatens to claim him. His fingers release the cord just as Skigga reaches him, her slender hands grasping his cloak to pull him back. Freydis falls backward through the portal, landing safely on soft grass in the hidden valley. Around her stand her companions, Thorbrand, Thera, Bjorn, Ulf, and the Krokvik warriors, all watching in amazement as she rises gracefully to her feet. On the mountainside of the rapidly closing portal, Volkov's furious face appears one last time. "This isn't finished, daughter of Thorbrand," he shouts, his voice distorting as the doorway between worlds shrinks. "I will find other ways to reach you, other means to claim what is rightfully mine." "It was never yours," Freydis replies calmly. "Nor is it truly mine. We are but temporary guardians of powers beyond our full understanding." With those words, she closes her hand into a fist, and the portal seals completely, leaving not even a ripple in the air to mark its existence. Silence falls over the valley, broken only by the distant song of birds and the soft gurgling of a nearby stream. Sigrid stirs against Freydis's chest, making small sounds of hunger now that the immediate danger has passed. The normalcy of the infant's needs grounds Freydis, pulling her back from the cosmic awareness that had temporarily filled her consciousness. "You opened a doorway," Thorbrand says in wonder, approaching his granddaughter with new respect in his aged eyes. "Without ritual, without blood sacrifice, you commanded the key as none in my memory ever has." "Not commanded," Freydis corrects gently. "Partnered with. The key is not a tool to be used, but a living connection to be honored." She looks down at the amulet, now returned to its normal appearance, the garnet eye simply a beautiful stone once. More. "It showed me another way, a better way, than Volkov's methods of domination and control." From the trees surrounding the clearing, figures emerge. Women of varying ages dressed in simple woolen garments adorned with symbols matching those on the quay. Their leader, a white-haired woman leaning on a staff carved with ravens, approaches Freydis with a knowing smile. "We have waited long for you, daughter of Thorbrand's line," she says, her voice carrying the wisdom of decades. "The quay has chosen well its new guardian." "I am only a healer," Freydis responds humbly, "not a warrior or mystic. Precisely why you were chosen," the elder woman replies. "The quay seeks balance, not dominance over worlds, but harmony between them. Healing hands rather than conquering ones. Protection rather than power." She looks down at Sigrid, her ancient eyes softening. And now a new generation will learn these truths, growing into her birthright naturally, rather than through force or fear. In the days that follow, Freydis and her companions find safety and welcome among the Western Enclave. The wise women teach her to control the quay's powers, to open doorways only when absolutely necessary, and always with proper preparation and respect for the boundaries between realms. Thorbrand, reunited with the community that sheltered him in exile, begins recording his knowledge for future generations, ensuring the hard-won wisdom of his experiences won't be lost. Word reaches them through the Enclave's own network of ravens that Krokvik successfully repelled Volkov's attack, the Rus forces retreating after suffering unexpected losses to defenses strengthened by Thorbrand's advice. Volkov himself survives, however, retreating to the Eastern Territories to rebuild his forces and search for other means to pursue his ambitions. "He will return," Thyra warns as she prepares to depart the Enclave, intent on rejoining Krokvik's defenders. Men like Volkov do not surrender their obsessions easily. "When he does, we will be ready," Freydis responds with quiet confidence, the key hanging openly now around her neck, accepted as part of her identity rather than a burden, to be feared. The raven that guided their journey alights on a nearby branch, watching the sisters farewell with those same intelligent eyes. In the months since their arrival, Freydis has come to understand its true nature. Not merely a bird, but a manifestation of the connection between worlds, a guardian in its own right that had recognized her potential long before she acknowledged it herself. "The blood remembers," she murmurs to the raven, echoing her grandfather's words, and through remembering, finds new paths forward. The bird caws once in seeming agreement before taking flight, circling the valley once and then soaring toward distant horizons where new challenges and new hopes await. And thus the tale of Freydis' crawling mother enters the sagas of our people, not merely as the wounded woman who crawled 10 miles through snow to save her child, but as the healer who discovered a new way to wield ancient power, protecting the boundaries between worlds with wisdom rather than warfare. Her legacy continues through her daughter Sigrid, who grew to become the greatest of the boundary keepers, and through the lineage that followed, guardians of the key and the sacred balance it represents. If this saga of courage, sacrifice, and mother's love has kindled the fire of adventure in your heart, fellow shield brothers and shield sisters, then join our band of Norse travelers. Subscribe to our channel now to ensure the Ravens of Odin bring you each new tale as it unfolds. Hit that notification bell like Thor's hammer striking the anvil, and you'll never miss our weekly journeys through the realms of Viking legend. Until our next saga, Skull.